There's an aspect of the history of the Underground that I have conspicuously avoided talking about, except in passing, and that's the time the Piccadilly Line changed its name. It was a curious name change and ultimately, from a passenger perspective, a little bit pointless. But nevertheless, for the period from 1910 to 1933, the Piccadilly Line was officially known as the London Electric Railway. So why was this? Well, it's kind of an administrative thing, a bit of a business-based switcheroo. The way it worked was this. Prior to 1910, the Piccadilly Line was known as the Great Northern Piccadilly and Brompton Railway. Great Northern refers to the Great Northern Railway, which it met at Finsbury Park and King's Cross. Piccadilly is, obviously, Piccadilly Circus. Brompton is the area around South Kensington and Gloucester Road. There used to be a tube station called Brompton Road, but it's been closed since 1934. Naturally, it became known by the shorter name of Piccadilly Tube shortly after its opening in 1906, and this was something the Underground group were happy to use in their publicity. It was sharp, it was catchy, it was modern. Technically, it wasn't super helpful because the Bakerloo line also went to Piccadilly Circus, but no one seemed to mind. So why, if it wasn't broke, would they try to fix it? Well, the answer to that goes back to the beginning of the century. At that time there were a lot of underground railways either under construction or in the planning stages, but most of them were having a lot of trouble getting built. There was only so much money to go around. And so it fell to this channel's favourite recurring character, Charles Tyson Yerkes, to get it sorted out. Yerkes was looking to invest in public transport in Britain. He was an American entrepreneur, particularly active in Chicago and Philadelphia. Thanks to some pretty dodgy dealings on the other side of the pond, he had fallen out of favour with the American public. He'd been made aware that there were people in Britain trying to build underground railways, and he'd also been made aware that they couldn't raise the funds to do so. In fact, representatives of the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway had approached him specifically. Now, if there was one thing Yerkes knew, it was public transport. And if there was a second thing he knew, it was how to get people to hand their money over. He teamed up with the financier Edgar Speyer to form a company known as Underground Electric Railways of London. UERL, in short order, acquired the Metropolitan District Railway, the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway, the Baker Street and Waterloo Railway, the Great Northern and Strand Railway, the Brompton and Piccadilly Circus Railway, and London United Trams. The District Railway was an already existing line, but the company was looking to build a deep-level underground railway to take the pressure off their busy central London section. London United were of course a tram company, but they were also hoping to build a tube line through West London, where the wealthy residents considered trams to be shabby and lower class. And the rest were tube lines looking to be built. UERL combined the District Railway's deep-level line, the London United Electric Railway, the Great Northern and Strand, and the Brompton and Piccadilly Circus Railway into the Great Northern Piccadilly and Brompton Railway. And that is, of course, the line that got built. That's how we got to our starting point here. It made sense. The four proposed Piccadilly predecessors duplicated each other somewhat. It was easier to make a case to Parliament for one long line from Hammersmith to Finsbury Park than for several shorter routes that overlapped. Ideally, they would also have liked to merge the Baker Street and Waterloo and the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway into it as well. While the companies existed as separate entities, building those lines would effectively mean starting from scratch. Wherever possible, UERL standardized things across all three lines. They were built using the same methods. The architecture and station design was the same. The trains were the same. This was all very deliberate. Buying in bulk, as it were, saves money. And since the engineers were confident that the same methods would work across all three lines, why mess around drawing up three sets of parameters? But despite having the same overall management and the same teams building them, they were nominally three separate companies. That's because the shareholders in America were nervous about the concept of the three companies merging outright. The Baker Street and Waterloo was the first to open in March 1906. when it swiftly adopted the nickname of the Bakerloo Line. The Piccadilly was next, in December 1906. And finally, in July 1907, the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway, or Hampstead Tube as its friends called it, opened to the public. Now initially these lines were not a great success, financially speaking, which is probably why those shareholders were reluctant to merge. They had cost a lot to build, and they also had trouble attracting passengers. It wasn't until 1910 that they really hit their stride, and so UERL once again put the idea of merging to the shareholders. Now the railways were turning a profit, it seemed less risky to tie them together. So all parties finally agreed. But the way they went about this was rather cumbersome. Under the terms of the London Electric Railway Amalgamation Act 1910, the Great Northern, Piccadilly and Brompton Railway would be renamed the London Electric Railway. At the same time, the Bakerloo and Hampstead tubes would be absorbed by the company. So this also means that there was a period when the Bakerloo line was technically part of the Piccadilly line. Now from the passenger perspective, this didn't mean much. The words London Electric Railway started appearing on maps and on the sides of some trains, but the lines were still generally known as the Piccadilly, Bakerloo and Hampstead tubes. Behind the scenes, though, it changed things a lot. While the three companies agreed on most issues, being as how they were run by the same people, bureaucracy demanded that they did everything separately. Now they could all act as one. It drastically simplified things from an administrative perspective. If they needed parliamentary permission to make a change across all three lines, it would only be the London Electric Railway that had to apply for it. For example, if you were a passenger, buying a ticket was a lot simpler, because the same system of fares applied anywhere on the London Electric Railway. The only line to be added to the London Electric Railway thereafter was the Edgware and Hampstead Railway, which was to be a tube line under Hampstead Heath to Edgware. The LER bought them out in 1912 and built the line as an extension of their Hampstead line. It's how the Northern Line gets to Edgware today. Oddly enough, no other lines became part of the LER. UERL would take over the Central London Railway and the City and South London Railway, but both would remain administratively separate, even though the City and South London would actually get physically connected to the Hampstead Tube to form the modern Northern Line. But UERL kept agitating for greater standardization and centralization across London's transport network. Eventually they'd get their wish in 1933 when everything UERL owned, LER and all the other underground railways, tram and bus operators, were folded into the London Passenger Transport Board, or London Transport. All the individual company names vanished, to be replaced with lines. The London Electric Railway went back to being known, officially this time, as the Piccadilly Line. Not that anyone was actually calling it the London Electric Railway outside of an official capacity, but you know. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this bureaucratic tale from the tube. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. It's kind of weird that I've hardly ever used the name London Electric Railway, but it's very rarely relevant to my videos. There's not much in history I talk about that requires me to talk about those three lines together, and only those three lines, if you know what I mean. And to be honest, nobody's ever pointed out that I wasn't using the term, so I probably could have got away with it. I would like as ever to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the simplification to my red tape. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.